Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to SuperTalk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode, 150. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettison. With me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium, Tony Estrella. Titanium 150. I can't believe it.
That's how much I weigh. $150.
Man, you look great.
Yeah. Feel great.
150 episodes. That's almost 3 years worth of episodes, even though we've been doing it for a little bit longer than 3 years. This is it's a monumental thing, 150.
It's a testament to the joy that this thing gives us, this little hobby that we have going
this
here.
Little thing we've been doing.
This little thing that we've been doing. And it's been absolute pleasure, Professor, to be honest with you.
It has.
I look forward to it. It keeps me off the hard stuff, and it occupies my mind in several different aspects of my life. So I really like it. I enjoy the content. I can't stand the Hollywood shills out there that give me all this fucking grief on social media, but bring it. I mean, you know, it is what it is. And I love and I respect the grind. I wish I had time to do this full time, but that's the goal, right?
That's the goal.
The goal is full time.
That's the goal. And I can honestly say, Titanium, I feel very similar. It doesn't feel any more than 148 episodes. I mean, so yeah, it's been a sincere pleasure.
Right.
Look, we got a lot to talk about today. We've got a couple of new series that we want to review and discuss, and one that we're really excited to talk about, the other one that we're reluctant to talk about, but we'll kind of get into that. Before we do, we want to thank the listeners, our patrons that bring the show to you. Patreon.com/SuperTalk. If you want to become a patron of the show, helps to support the show directly, so please join if you can. That would be great. Patreon.com/SuperTalk. All right, well, let's get into the review section. And I mentioned at the top of the show, we had some new series premiere here over the last couple of weeks. First one we'll talk about tonight is Agatha All Along. We had 2 episodes premiered 2 weeks ago, and then we had another episode last week. What'd you think, Titanium, of Agatha All Along?
Here's my best description of it. Okay. It's not good, but it's not awful. And in between good and awful is okay. And I think it's okay. It's not my cup of tea, and I'm very honest about that. It's just not my cup of tea.
You're not looking forward to watching every episode when it comes out every week.
No, not like I am the Penguin.
No. That's what my point is. We have had series in the past,
like WandaVision, like Loki,
like Moon Knight. I mean, there's been several,
no question,
where
agree.
I would wake up Wednesday morning early to watch the episode that dropped at midnight before I went to work, because I was so excited to see it.
You didn't want spoilers on the internet.
No, exactly.
I 100% agree with you.
And this one, again, I as you know, I've been out on vacation here for the past couple of weeks, and I was out of country, and you know, access to Disney Plus is sometimes easy, sometimes hard, depending on where you are. I did download the first 2 episodes to watch I actually watched the first 2 episodes while I was traveling, and I was like, okay. The first episode, as a matter of fact, was kind of interesting because the way they started the show with Agatha, really, the show begins kind of at some point in time after the end of the WandaVision series, where most, if many of the town of Westwood, was it Westfield,
Westview, I believe.
Westview.
Right?
There you go. We'll figure it out eventually. Westview is.
I'm just responding to the TikTok folks. We're live TikTok. We're live in TikTok.
Westview folks are kind of back to normal, except for, or at least what she believes, Agatha is still under the spell that Wanda put her under at the end of that show, and she had become a detective for the police
crimes,
for the police force, and she had been working there for some time. We don't know how long, but then I do like they did have a number of references to WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness and what happened at the end of that
Yeah.
movie in the first episode, right? So the body that they were looking at that was on the ground looked very much like Wanda.
Yeah.
And the outfit that she was wearing in
Right.
WandaVision, right? And
Yeah.
had the black fingertips and everything else. And you're like, oh, where are they going with this? So I did like a lot of those references, and at least it teases that they're going somewhere with the show.
Yeah.
It just may take them a while to get
Oh, no
there.
question. Yeah, no question. And episode 3 kind of mentions some other things that could be up and coming.
We hope.
We hope. But am I excited to see it every week? No. But is it somewhat interesting? Yes. Is it about being generous, C-level characters? Yeah, it is. Are they powerful comic book characters? Agatha Harkness was not a huge presence in the comics. Wiccan Billy, yes, maybe pretty big character, but they really haven't developed that at all. And that's what's kind of interesting to me. I'm seeing how they develop that. Mephisto, another mention of him in episode 3, which is kind of interesting. They are going to have a season finale double episode on Halloween. So that'll be the end of that series with 2 episodes. Am I excited about that? I'm going to watch it. I'm kind of looking forward to it, but I'm not like, I can't wait to see what happens. I can't wait to see what happens on the Witch's Road. Again, a CW hocus pocus,
Yes.
charmed type of show.
Very much
If
so.
you're into that kind of stuff, you're going to love this. If you're not, and I'm not, sorry, it's just not me.
It's very hokey.
It is.
It's very, like you said, sitcom-y.
Yep.
There's no character on this show that I would call compelling.
No.
Um,
And now that they killed off Mrs. Hart, I'm done.
yeah, she was the best.
She was cute. Yeah. But
Yeah, and so I mean, look, let's just briefly. The first episode is her kind of coming out of the spell that she was under from Wanda, and kind of being convinced to get back to being Agatha Harkness. She then decides to put together a coven of witches so they can go on the witch's road. And I guess the concept is that you have to have a witch that has a certain specialty, like
skill set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's potions and there's incantations and there's curses and there's all kinds of other things, totems.
You need a green witch.
There's different colored witches, I guess. But look, they go on this witch's road, and the third episode was their first episode on the witch's road, and I guess there's a series of trials, and they're going to be each discipline is going to have to be showcased, and it's very hokey. Again, I think what I've said all along is I don't look forward to this. It's not like incredibly entertaining. Is it mildly entertaining? Yeah, there's parts of it that are.
It's okay. I tell you what, it exceeded my expectations because I was not looking forward to this.
It's better than some of the other series we've seen on
absolutely.
On Disney
Plus. Now, let me ask you this, Professor. Would you consider it better than Echo?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. Yeah.
And Echo was a very serious drama.
Right.
Whereas this doesn't try to be too serious, which
No.
I think is a strength of this show.
Yeah.
And again, I think for me personally, I'm looking forward to where they're going with some of the things they're setting up a lot. Again, a lot of allusions to the Scarlet Witch and Wanda and potentially her son being on the show and potentially, things that might happen in the future. And if they're using this show to set up an avenue to bring the Scarlet Witch back into the MCU, perfect.
If they're setting up this show to bring Mephisto into the MCU, perfect. That's fine.
Either or. Either or both.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's one or the other, I'm happy with that. Again, the big rumors were that Sacha Baron Cohen was playing Mephisto in the Ironheart series, which seemed like a really weird place for Mephisto to show up in the MCU.
Even with the Red Hood as the main antagonist.
Well, maybe that explains a little bit of it, but why Ironheart? I mean,
Weird.
None of it just makes any sense.
No, I get it.
And maybe this is setting that up, which is great. And maybe they are setting up Mephisto to be a big bad in the MCU going forward. And maybe Mephisto plays a role in some of the things that are going to be happening in Doomsday and Secret Wars. Great. Look, in the original Infinity Saga or Infinity Saga, Infinity Gauntlet comic
Notebooks,
book.
pens, kids, notebooks, pens. The professor's going to lay down some history here.
But in the original Infinity Gauntlet comic book storyline, Mephisto had a huge role in that story. He was literally in Thanos' ear the entire time, manipulating him. And basically, because again, very different from what we saw in the movies, but Thanos was doing everything he was doing to court death. And Mephisto was literally
in love with death.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally like in Thanos' ear to kind of tell him, if you want to win her over, you got to do X, Y, and Z. Right. And so look, he's played an enormous role in multiple storylines across the comic books for decades. And if you're using this to set that character up as a potential villain going forward in the MCU, fantastic. And even if it's one of those villains that just shows up periodically to cause trouble, perfect, no problem.
Right.
And if that's what this series is doing, great. The illusion that Tony was mentioning, I guess one of the witches was speaking to Teen, who we all believe is Wiccan.
Yeah.
And letting him know, like, you can't trust Agatha. She gave up her own son for basically to get the Darkhold. She had to sacrifice her own son to Mephisto.
Right.
And is she an agent of Mephisto? Nobody knows.
Right.
And so his name was mentioned. And look, there was a lot of allusions to Mephisto in WandaVision, and everybody, including a lot of the internet shills out there, thought Mephisto was going to be in that series and never was.
Right.
What can really save this for me is at the end of Agatha All Along.
Some kind of payoff.
Yeah. There's got to be a payoff.
Got to be a payoff.
Because we were expecting some massive payoffs at WandaVision. Is Doctor Strange going to show up?
Yeah.
Is, whatever. And none of them ever came.
Yeah.
And so.
But that show was on a different level.
But it was good without it.
Right.
But there was a lot of like expected payoffs there. And we had mentioned that, as a matter of fact, Benedict Cumberbatch was supposed to be in the show, was supposed to show up in the final episode, but couldn't because of COVID.
COVID, correct.
And that's, that was and it would have led into Multiverse of Madness even better or more so.
Agree.
And again, there's a lot of stories out there that potentially the plot of Multiverse of Madness originally was going to have Mephisto as the villain of that movie, and Wanda and Doctor Strange teaming up to beat Mephisto.
Yeah.
And a lot of that would have made sense, but I think a lot of those plans got derailed because of a lot of different situations like COVID. But if they're using this series, if Sacha Baron Cohen shows up in this series,
not bad.
In like at the last episode or in a post-credit scene or in one of the episodes, I'm now excited. I'm like, okay, you're doing something. You're setting something up.
Right.
If Elizabeth Olsen shows up at the end of this, okay, you paid it off.
Yeah.
But
I don't think she's going to, though.
If at the end of this series they don't answer any of these questions and they don't pay off some of these things,
and it's a standalone Hocus Pocus or Charmed series,
I'm going to be heavily disappointed, and frankly, my expectations are really low on this actually happening.
Again, it is okay. We'll probably won't review every single episode. We'll probably do like we're doing now. We'll summarize several of them together, but we'll do a big end of the series show that will highlight what we saw.
Let's call this what it is. Again, this series was conceptualized during the period of time at Disney/Marvel when the previous leadership was in place and they were working on a lot of experimental things that we saw some payoffs of that didn't work very well. And people thought Catherine Hahn was so good in WandaVision that she needs her own series. This is a character we need to develop. And they've shifted that. they've basically come out and said, we are not doing that anymore. We are
Yeah.
focusing on the A-list characters and the
Yeah.
ones that move the needle. And so this is a byproduct of that previous regime. And they had sunk enough into it. They're like, okay, we just got to finally do it.
Right.
And so we'll see where it goes. But again, I'm not expecting anything. I think
the last of that would be Ironheart, correct?
Yes.
Ironheart is the last of the old.
One caveat. Part of that was Daredevil Born Again. They ended up scrapping the original,
correct,
and redoing it all.
Correct. Yes.
So Daredevil Born Again was basically in the same thing, but they had to redo it all.
That holds true with Captain America 4.
Exactly.
That holds true with Captain. They cut literally 60% of the movie out and reshot almost the whole fucking thing. Yeah.
So again, I look, when I tune in every week, or when I tune in, I don't tune in like the minute it comes out. No. When I do watch it, I have to admit, I scanned through a lot of the last one, just like, zip through some of the dialogue that was going on because it wasn't meaningful enough for me. It's like, get to the point. I'll watch it, but I'm not like,
it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Let's move on.
All right, let's get in the news because there's a lot of things to talk about, and one of the most exciting things, which I'm very excited about, we do finally have an official casting announcement for Hal Jordan in the Lantern series planned for HBO Max. This is one of, again, James Gunn's pet projects, bringing the Lanterns to the new DCU that he's setting up. He's going to be doing it as a series on HBO Max, and the way he's described it is kind of like a true detective story with Hal Jordan and Jonathan Stewart,
which is another Lantern.
That they're both Green Lanterns and have Earth as their kind of precinct, and they're space cops.
Yeah,
and Earth is their precinct, and they're a true detective story, kind of investigating some things that are going on.
I'm so on. And what a hell of an actor they got. Here's my only
Kyle Chandler.
He's awesome. Kyle Chandler's awesome. He's phenomenal. My only concern is his age. So obviously this might be a one and done for him. So this might be the last of our Hal Jordan and Jonathan, which I'm okay with.
Yeah,
I'm fine with Jon Stewart movie, a younger Jon Stewart.
I think that's the plan.
I think that's the plan too, which is great.
I again, so we had mentioned a couple of episodes ago that originally Josh Brolin had been rumored to be cast in the role of Hal Jordan. We thought it was an interesting casting. We thought it was strange, knowing the roles that he's played in the MCU already. Both Cable and Thanos, kind of like different sides of the coin. But hey, now doing another comic book character. But now we got Kyle Chandler, who I really, really, really love. I mean, Friday Night Lights, one of the best, television series that I remember watching.
He's in that show Bloodline too. Have you seen any of that? That's pretty good.
Bloodline's really good.
He's great in that.
He was in the Godzilla King of Monsters movie, and he's a fantastic actor.
Yeah,
I think he'll be great in the role. I think you're saying something that I believe is true. I don't think the plans for the Green Lantern in the DCU are centered around Hal Jordan. I think it's centered around Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
No casting announcements about who's playing Jon Stewart, who's going to be Jon Stewart.
Right.
I think a
lot of fan casting.
I think who they cast in that role is going to say a lot about the direction of Green Lantern.
Agree. Yeah.
I would not be surprised if at the end of the Lantern series, Hal Jordan's not with us any longer for many different reasons,
or is off in a sector somewhere far away,
relocated to Alaska or whatever.
Again, I've been clear about this on social media, and my vision is a true detective, a younger cop, an older cop.
Yep.
I've even equated something to the not equated. I envision something to the movie Seven, with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman but swap the roles, would be
or Lethal Weapon or something.
Something an older character, a younger cop, kind of a mentor, but they're on this space kind of detective story. There's so much potential there. If they do it right, it might be one of my most anticipated shows from DC.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. So who are some of the fan castings that are out there for Jon Stewart?
The guy that's in that Netflix show, the Rambo kind of spinoff. It's kind of like Rambo. It's called Real. It's in Netflix. It's this guy that comes into this small town and he's starting to get harassed by I'm great with names.
Yeah.
The Miami Vice guy. what's the Miami Vice guy though?
Don Johnson.
Don Johnson's in it,
Okay.
and he plays the bad guy. And this guy comes into town. He's a black guy, a military guy, like bright eyes. Like his eyes are just like emeralds or something. They're amazing. But great actor. He's getting really good buzz from this show, and a lot of fans are casting him. So I think that's a good shot. I think that might be. He's a younger guy.
No Jonathan Boyega.
He's
casting.
been mentioned, but
Yeah.
no.
Look, I mean, Jon Stewart, again, it has a long history in the comic books as a very important Green Lantern.
Yeah.
You know, and I think he'd look, if that's, we know we're going to get the Guy Gardner version of Green Lantern in the Superman movie
Yeah.
that we're going to see that comes out next year. Look, I think the lanterns are incredibly important, and you know, I really have a soft spot in my heart for Hal Jordan. I think he's a phenomenal character. But if you're going to center the future of the Green Lantern character around Jonathan Stewart, I don't think that's a bad idea. Similar to what Marvel did with Ant-Man, they decided to focus on the Scott Lang version of Ant-Man versus the Hank Pym
Great
version.
parallel, Professor. Yeah. That's a great parallel.
Yeah,
that's a great parallel. I agree.
I mean, and there's no problem with that. And if and another rumor out there is if and when James Gunn decides to bring the Flash into his DCU, no rumors or stories or thoughts about when or how that's going to happen. We've heard nothing about that character from James Gunn at all. But the questions have been brought up. Are we going to focus on the Barry Allen version of
or the Wally West?
Or the Wally West version?
Right.
And I don't think you go wrong with either of them.
Either of them, no.
Right. So whatever direction you want to go, or even other versions of Flash, who knows?
But it's interesting, Professor. Every character you just said is A or a B++ character.
Oh yeah.
And arguably,
a Jonathan Stewart version of Green Lantern is a B+, and the Hal Jordan is an A. That's the way I would look at that.
Okay, and how do you look at Wally West and Barry Allen?
Well, I would say for a very long time, Barry Allen was A, Wally West was B+, until Barry Allen died. So when Wally West was on the Teen Titans as Kid Flash, B+ character.
Yeah.
And Barry Allen was the Flash.
Right.
But then when Barry Allen died in the Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline and Wally West became the Flash, he then had a long run as the Flash in the comic books, and he became the A version of the Flash and part of the Justice League and everything else. And then even when Barry Allen came back, they never really fully die. Wally West was still called the Flash because he had kind of earned it.
No,
right?
I dig it. I like the parallels. That's a great parallel to those characters, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Both, but the important thing there is to remember is both A or B+ characters. We're not dealing with a C, D level character.
I'm looking forward to this series.
Yeah,
and again, Kyle Chandler, for me, I love watching him on screen. He's,
compelling.
Yeah, exactly. Bright eyes, full heart, can't lose, right? So clear eyes, full heart, can't lose. Joker 2, Folie Deux, premieres this weekend in the theaters. Early reviews are out, and they're not good.
No, a lot of things that I've been hearing and reading is that if you liked the first Joker and you were really looking forward to this one
as a sequel,
you're going to be disappointed.
Right. And if you're a hardcore comic book fan and you're looking for comic book based stories and
Harley Quinn
around Harley Quinn and Joker, you're going to be disappointed
big time. And another thing that I read, and we're going to give it a chance. I'm going to definitely see it. And make my own assumptions.
Are you going to see it this weekend?
I might see it this weekend. I don't know, but
let me know.
After all of this,
I got nothing to do on. Well, we'll figure. Maybe we can go this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that from what I'm hearing, and I'm going to make my own assumptions. I'm not going to pass judgment. I'm going to go open mind, open eyes, wide open heart,
clear eyes, full heart.
Yeah. If I love it, I love it. The musical sequences seem very out of place. And kind of doesn't move the story forward. They're almost.
And I hear there are a lot of them.
There's a lot of them.
The other thing I heard was if you like musicals and you're a fan of musical theater and musicals in the movies, you'll like this movie.
Okay.
So if you go into it looking to see a musical that's about some characters but if you're a hardcore comic book fan and you're looking for a sequel to the first movie, you're going to be very disappointed. And I also heard, and I don't know anything and no details. This is just what I heard. The ending is messed up.
Yeah.
That's all I've heard. It's a messed up ending, like totally wacko, off the wall. Wow, I can't believe they did that.
I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go in with an open mind.
Just, what is Todd Phillips doing? I just don't get it.
And it's not like we're prejudging.
Look, he made $1 billion with the first movie.
Yeah.
And I think he was like, hey, let's do something fun.
Yeah. Look, we weren't excited once we heard it was a musical in the first place.
Right.
When we heard it was a musical, we weren't excited. We were excited when Lady Gaga was cast as Harley Quinn.
No problem with that.
That's phenomenal.
I mean, she did great in like House of Gucci. She was fantastic.
They turned it into a musical, and both of us looked at each other like, really? So let's move on. We'll make judgment after we see it.
Okay. And I think we should give our honest review at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
New trailer for Venom. So we ramping up. Venom comes out here at the end of the month. And Venom, the Last Dance comes out at the end, and they've been releasing some trailers here, and we got a new one. And the heavily rumored appearance, or we'll say presence, of the Knull character was confirmed in the latest trailer.
Yeah.
So Knull, kind of the king of the symbiotes, created all the symbiotes, sent
Dark
them,
Lord.
Sent them across the universe, and all thing comes to Earth, and there's something that he needs or wants from Earth or Venom or whatever, and sends his
minions,
xenobites or xenophobes or whatever after Venom. Look, we were wondering if they were ever going to talk about or introduce Knull. And again, this took a decade to happen in the comics, and we've talked about this before, the original symbiote that came out in the 80s and the Secret Wars comic books that ended up becoming Spider-Man's black costume, that was ultimately alive and sentient, and then ended up becoming bonded to Eddie Brock, and then became Venom, who was a villain who hated Spider-Man and was one of Spider-Man's biggest enemies for many years. And then ultimately he became a good guy, the Lethal Protector, and then all kinds of other things. Well, the movies have taken a different direction. Ultimately, they kind of built this storyline around this character Knull, and they said, well, there's not just the costume. There's many of these symbiotes, and we've seen not only the children of Venom, like Carnage and Toxin and a bunch of others that ended up being developed over years, but there's lots of them around the universe, and there's this one king, of the symbiotes, Knull. And we saw Knull in the trailer, and you mentioned that it's now been reported that Andy Serkis is going to be voicing the character of Knull.
Yeah, which motion capture believes me to be they're going to do some kind of motion capture with this character.
Yeah,
which will be great. He's a phenomenal character actor.
He's awesome.
He's one of the best, right? So that gives me hope. But guys, if you don't know who Knull is, there are so many videos out there about Knull. I mean, tons of them. He's the king of the symbiotes. He cut off a celestial's head with the Necro sword, the black.
The Necro sword that we saw in Thor: Love and Thunder.
It was wasted on Gore the God Butcher.
Was originally Knull's sword. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So we've seen some bits and pieces of him. Go watch something that's very phenomenal villain, great character, very powerful, very cool. And the reason why I like this character so much is because he is intricate enough that comic book fans are fascinated with him and the sword and everything. And he's the king of the symbiotes and the hive mind that all these symbiotes have. He kind of sees everything that they see and feels and understands everything that they understand. That's fascinating, but he's also simple enough that the novice fan
easy to understand.
That's simple enough. He's not like Kang, he's not that complicated, difficult, and there's multiverses and there's a ton of them, and he's simple enough that the novice fan will latch onto, like a Thanos. And I think it's brilliant.
And I hope, and it seems like this movie is being set up as a character development movie for Knull. Well, they're using this to develop.
There's rumors that Spider-Man 4 he will be in Spider-Man 4.
That's what I was alluding to. That now the stories out there there's a multitude of them now centered around. So we know that this is the last Venom movie.
Yes.
Right. That we know this is the last Sony Venom movie. This other stories that have come out this past week are here thusful. Sony is scrapping their plans for the Sony, picture cinematic universe that they were centering around all the Spider-Man characters. They're saying we're punting. Everything we've done up to this point, everything, we had planned going forward, we're scrapping completely.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe the Kraven the Hunter movie is going to be very similar to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and the Flash movie in the DCEU.
Yeah.
Just, we made it. We filmed it. Here it is. Make some money. You try to get our money back. But there's no future for this character or this actor as that character.
Knull has a future if Marvel.
Right. So the story now is Sony's completely scrapping their plans for their own Sony Pictures universe centered around Spider-Man. And they're now putting all of their chips in with Marvel. And they're basically now going to be taking all of their plans and integrating them directly with Marvel. And everything going forward is going to be a Marvel Sony integrated plan.
Which is great.
The best Spider-Man movies we've seen have been Sony and Marvel
collaboration.
Together,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And again, there's been a lot of rumors around what the plot of Spider-Man 4 is. There's a rumor out there now that the title is, Spider-Man 4, the Black King or the King in Black or something like that. Which leads us to believe, again, Knull, the King of the Symbiotes, the King in Black.
Yeah.
Does Spider-Man get his suit? Does Spider-Man, get the symbiote suit somehow? And is Knull involved in all this other stuff? Is Knull the villain of that movie? Lots of rumors about that being true now. And that would lend me to believe that there are future plans for the Tom Hardy version of Venom in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the Sony Pictures universe, but now being brought into the MCU and integrated with Tom Holland.
You said something very important there. The Sony universe. The Sony universe is really the only bag of dog shit set on fire on the front porch of Spider-Man right now, because the way they handle Knull, they could fuck him up. They could really turn off a lot of people.
You mentioned this. You said Sony will fuck it up.
I'm worried that Sony will mess up something that to do with this, and moving forward, Marvel will have an uphill battle.
Well, so here's the question: how much influence or input did Marvel have in this movie?
None. That's a problem.
Yeah,
that's my fear. Now, best case scenario, Knull is in it for 10 minutes at an end credit scene or something very nonchalant.
Look, it could be that, Tony. It could be he's alluded to, he's talked about, we hear about him in the movie, which we've seen in the trailers.
Yeah.
Venom is speaking about, Knull. He's
don't say his name.
Yeah. And maybe it is just an end credit scene, and that end credit scene leads into Spider-Man 4, and that could work.
It could work.
Okay. We'll see. And we'll see that movie here at the end of the month. So
yeah, absolutely.
It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah.
X-Men 97, boy. And this is kind of like a new story that's a little bit of a byproduct of the whole Beau DeMayo drama that's going on between him and Marvel and Disney. X-Men 97 season 2, we know was already written by Beau DeMayo and was in production, or they were working on it. Well, now story is that has now been moved to a 2026 release, and they're doing major plot rewrites, including the removal of the Onslaught character line that they had set up at the end of season 1 of X-Men 97. So for those of you who don't know who Onslaught is, there was a big storyline in the comics around this villain of Onslaught, who ended up being the amalgamation of Professor X and Magneto that was created when Professor X had to take over Magneto's mind when he pulled the adamantium out of Wolverine, which we saw at the end of season 1. And this ended up happening in the comic books. And, Onslaught shows up and wreaks havoc across the earth, and all the heroes have to fight against him and everything else. They were setting this up. And I guess Bo DeMeo had written that into season 2 as a plot line or a storyline that they were going to pay off at some point in time, maybe near the end of season 2, setting up season 3. Now that's being removed from what we understand. I guess there when this story first hit, somebody tweeted at Bo DeMeo, it sounds like they're taking a whole Onslaught storyline out of season 2, and he tweeted something to the fact of, doesn't surprise me, they know nothing about the comic books, type of thing.
An FU to him, right?
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think they want to take him and his influence
completely
or
out
his
of it.
input out of season 2 completely.
And if they do that and season 2 is a big success or widely popular, that's tough.
Yeah, but what if it's not? I mean, I think one of the best things that Bo DeMeo
Then
did,
that justifies his talent.
One of the best things that Bo DeMeo did is he drew from comic book storylines for season 1.
Yeah.
I mean, he pulled stories directly out of the comics and did them very differently and briefly and kind of summarized some of those storylines, and integrated them in ways that they weren't integrated in the comics. But he pulled those stories, like the Bastion storyline, the Goblin Queen, the Mr. Sinister, the Apocalypse stuff, all the stuff he's pulling directly from the comics. And that's one of the things I love the most about the show. And we'll see what he's going to do what they're going to do with season 2 now. I mean, I can't wait for the next season. I think it's one of the best things that they've ever done on Disney Plus. So
cool.
But if it's not till 2026 now, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Another big story, Scarlett Johansson is officially back in the MCU as an executive producer on the Thunderbolts. And there's a lot of stories out there about, is this setting the stage for her ultimate return in Secret Wars? Potentially, I'll say. I mean, my theory is that maybe. I think assigning her executive producer role for the Thunderbolts is twofold. We know there was a massive lawsuit between her and Marvel about the release of the Black Widow movie.
That's what I read.
Is that she was, so if we remember, Black Widow was released simultaneously on Disney Plus and in the theaters, primarily due to the COVID crisis. Theaters were not being well attended, were barely open. They were concerned about the returns in the box office for this movie, so they decided to release it on Disney Plus and in the theater at the same time. She was given a cut of the theater proceeds for the movie, and that cut was diminished dramatically because it was released on Disney Plus.
Right.
And she didn't get a cut of any of those, new subscribers that came to Disney Plus to buy that movie. And it ended up being a lawsuit. Not really sure how they ended up settling that. I think this executive producer credit is an attempt to make her whole to some extent.
Agree.
And I think that's the first step in kind of reconciling with her some of the things that went wrong with that movie.
That's what I read, is that this is part of that settlement.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of it. But I do think that the door or window is open for her to come back in Secret Wars, like all the original characters. Yeah. I think it's the same.
That would be great.
Yeah, and there was a number of stories out this past week around what Marvel's plans are post Secret Wars, about them completely recasting almost the entirety of the original set of Avengers characters post Secret War, with some minor exceptions from what we hear. Chris Hemsworth is coming back for a Thor 5 movie, which now they say is going to be coming out after Secret Wars, which means he's sticking around. He's not going to be recast. We hear Mark Ruffalo is not going to be recast as a Hulk. He's going to stick around, and they are going to make a Hulk solo movie eventually after Secret Wars. But all the other characters are basically free game. Now, the exception to that would be like the new characters they've just recently introduced, like the Fantastic Four. They're not going to recast all of those
add
characters.
Doctor Strange to that list, because they are talking about another Doctor Strange movie.
And the question is,
before Secret Wars.
Well, if it's before Secret Wars, then potentially he gets recast. But
after Secret Wars.
Right.
Yeah. Because I think he'll be in Secret Wars.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. He will. Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see if Scarlett Johansson comes back. Like I said, there's not one actor or actress that's ever played a superhero ever that would surprise me if they showed up or didn't show up in Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they end up showing up, like all the Fox characters, all of the
Blade.
if they all show up in Secret Wars, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah, agree.
If we thought Endgame was ambitious in regard to the number of characters that were in Endgame and Infinity War extensively, Secret Wars is going to be as ambitious, if not more.
Yeah, and rightfully so. And the Russo brothers are on it, so
Yep.
I have a good warm fuzzy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they do whatever they do, they're going to do right. They're going to do
no
the right
question.
way.
No question.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like Infinity War and Endgame, I think it'll do.
Okay.
It'll
It was done the right way.
Doomsday and Secret War will be excellent.
Will be. You mentioned something to me the other day about James Gunn's working on a dynamic duo animated film that's part animation, part puppetry, part claymation.
Yeah. Part live action. It's a mix.
Focused
it's a mix of
on
media.
Dick Grayson and Jason Todd.
Yeah. Very
Versions of
bizarre.
Robin. Where did you hear this?
It was announced. Like it was physically announced. I think
physically. Like, how do you physically announce something?
He put a he posted like a poster or a title for it. Dynamic duo. Yeah, with the logo behind it. Yeah. So
this
he
is
was
a
the one.
James Gunn promotion.
Yeah, or James Gunn announcement. I would say announcement, not really promotion, but announcement. Which is interesting. I mean,
so this
know nothing about it.
Well, and it must be after this what he calls phase 1, Gods and Monsters. We kind of know what's in that phase 1 or what he's planned for that. So this must be a phase 2 project he's working on.
Yeah, Creature Commandos comes out the end of this year, so that'll be the first kind of taste that we get. It'll be kind of interesting. So,
and we know they're going to be starting Peacemaker season 2 next year. I believe they said they're going to start filming Peacemaker season 2.
No, they've already filmed it.
Already done.
Oh yeah,
in the can.
It's in post.
So is it coming out next year?
They don't know. TBD.
Okay.
Nothing's been announced, but it's in the can.
And there's that Waller series that they were going to be doing as well.
Nothing about that.
You haven't heard.
Nobody has heard anything about that.
Yeah. So all we know for sure, Creature Commandos coming out this year before the end of the year, and Superman Legacy.
Superman.
That's it.
They cast a villain in the Supergirl of Tomorrow film. That's been casting.
So more casting announcements
for that. So that's moving along. So yeah, we'll see. I'm excited.
All right. Well, like I said, and James Gunn we trust. So we'll kind of see.
And two things I wanted to mention real quick that aren't on here. One is Kite Man, really fun show. It's an animated show.
What's it on? Is it on Hulu or something? What's it on?
HBO. I think it's on Max.
Okay, Kite Man. It's an animated show.
It's animated, like the old school, like it's animated, but it's funny. I'm not like binging it. Like I'm watching an episode when I have time. And
so Kite Man is, for those of you who don't know, I'll say C- list villain in the DC comics.
But Lex Luthor, he's a D.
Yeah,
D character for sure. But Lex Luthor in it, Apocalypse is in it. No, not Apocalypse. Darkseid is in it, which is hilarious. So there's a lot of like weird kind of characters in it, and it's funny. It's an adult humor. It's like
similar to the MODOK series that they had on Hulu.
Yeah, kind of like, not that claymation.
Not claymation,
but regular animation.
But similar, like I guess sentiment. Like they're trying. That's what they're going after.
Yeah.
Like a dark comedy kind of thing.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's funny. I'm not like in love with it, but another thing I wanted to mention is there's a movie, not a movie. I believe it's a series coming out this Sunday on Max called The Franchise, and it's a comedy. And it is about the production of a superhero movie, like a big production company making a superhero movie, and it's a comedy about it. It looks hilarious. The guy that plays Zemo is in it, and then the lead that was in that remake where the Beatles,
Daniel Bruhl
is in it.
Okay.
And it looks amazing. It looks hilarious. Like the trailer for it, and it's called The Franchise. So we'll get back to it. I'm gonna watch it if it doesn't interfere with Penguin.
Any ties into DC or anything? No, nothing.
No, it's just a kind of a standalone superhero production crew, like a big studio, and their production
comes out this weekend.
It comes out this weekend.
All right, I'll have to check that out.
Called The Franchise.
All right, well, let's jump into our topic of the week. Brought to us by our friends over at Studio GG Studios, home of the man band Corn on the Cob. Hey, Studio G, hope you guys are doing well.
You lovely bastards.
The one series that we did have these past couple weeks that just came out was also The Penguin on HBO Max. And I'll say, I think you and I are on the same page here, Titanium. It has lived up to the hype and the expectations and then some.
It is right up my alley.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is really good.
It
is gangster level awesome. Good guys, Sopranos wrapped into one. If the Sopranos had a baby with a comic book character, it would come out to be the Penguin. That's this bastard child that we are now watching in all of its glory. And it is great. I'm all in.
I mean, the acting is phenomenal. The character development's phenomenal. The writing is phenomenal.
I'm going to make a statement here, and you can slap me if you want. Right. I'm going to make a statement here. Colin Farrell as the Penguin is like Heath Ledger as the Joker.
Yeah. I don't think that's
not a stretch,
crazy.
Right?
No. I think, and again, I've watched 2 episodes, right? So the original episode came out on a Thursday, and then they waited till Sunday to do the next episode. I was like looking for them, like, what the hell's going on? And then they waited till it's coming out on Sundays now, which is fine. I mean, but I was surprised that they
took that
waited
long.
10 days to do the next episode. But look, Colin Farrell is going to get nominated for an Emmy for this show.
How can he not? How can he not?
Like we saw him in the Batman movie as this character, and he only had like 8 minutes of screen time. It was something really, really short. But everybody's like, who's playing the Penguin?
Right.
Who's playing Oswald Cobblepot? Everybody's like, no, that's Colin Farrell. Like, who?
What?
We heard he was in the movie, but that's who he is. I mean, the makeup job, the accent, the act, he's just like, I literally am watching him and I'm like, I'm trying to find Colin Farrell in the character. I'm like trying to find him. I'm like, and at some point in time, you kind of get it a little bit and see some of the mannerisms, but he's so good.
It's a great show. And it's a great show.
What I've loved about it is they're doing such a great job of painting him as this underdog criminal that always is being discounted, is always being, he's an afterthought. Nobody gives him any credit, but he always seems to find a way to do what he needs to do to kind of keep going.
Survive is what he said.
Yeah, survive.
He's a survivor.
And I mean, the first couple episodes both episodes had clear examples of how he does that.
Yeah.
I mean, the first episode, so this series takes place, I'll say, right after the end of the Batman movie.
Yeah.
So remember in the Batman movie, Carmine Falcone was killed in the movie.
Right.
And the city was devastated
by the Riddler.
By the Riddler, and the seawall came down and flooded the entire city, and they're kind of like recovering from this. But the city basically is in a shambles as crime is up like 45% since this all happened. But this series starts like weeks after the end of that movie. And we see Oswald Cobblepot go back to his bar, the Iceberg Lounge, and he knows that Carmine had hidden or kept some valuables there, and he goes back to get them. And Carmine's son,
who is the heir apparent,
but he's a druggie, and he's he's
rude.
Yeah, he finds Oz, and he says, "Hey, you're here stealing stuff from my dad's stuff," and he said, "No, I was getting it for you." 'Cause he's always pretending like he's on the side of the people who are in charge. He's like, I know,
I'm the boss.
I had to get this for you because I know how important it is for you and your future and, your future plans. But then Alberto starts laughing at him and saying, "You're such a loser. You couldn't do anything." And then Oz just shoots him.
Yeah.
Shoots him straight in the head. He's like, "You can't laugh at me." And he's like, "Oh shit, what did I just do?"
To me, that scene was like watching The Boys and A-Train run through run through his girlfriend.
Right?
That scene was like, oh my God, did he just do that?
Yeah.
Like, what just happened?
And then the rest of the episode was him like, okay, I really effed up here.
Yeah.
I just killed the heir apparent to my boss who just got killed. His son was going to take over and I just killed him. What am I going to do? And then he's scrambling to clean it up. So he has to do two things. He not only has to clean it up, but he has to frame it on somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best parts of this show is he ends up going outside to dump the body in his trunk, and there's kids out there trying to jack his car that's parked out in front of the Iceberg Lounge, and he shoots at a couple of them, and he ends up capturing one of them. What's his name? His name is Victor. So he captures this one kid, and he basically enlists him. He says, "Look, he was going to kill him.
Yeah,
he took him somewhere, and he's like, now it's time for me to kill you." And the kid's like, whoa. I'm useful. I've got skills. And he goes, all right, I'm going to give you a chance. You can come work for me. But if it doesn't work out, I know where you live. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come kill you. So he basically enlists this kid. And I like the kid.
Yeah,
Victor, he's really good.
Yeah.
But then it's the two of them trying to cover up this murder.
Yeah.
And then they end up doing it like perfectly.
Oh,
frame. So
smart. The show is so smart.
Oh.
The writing is so smart and on top. The pace is perfect. It's slow when it needs to be. It speeds up and there's so much tension. You're like, what?
But he's brilliant.
Yeah.
There's another
great writing.
Another villain, this Salvatore Moroni, played by God, what's the actor's name?
Yeah. In prison?
Yes.
Salvatore Moroni is in prison.
And Alberto had been bragging that he had stolen his pinky ring from him and was wearing it.
I just remember he was the bad guy in Highlander.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah. But he stole the pinky ring from Salvatore Moroni and he was wearing it. And so Penguin goes back to prison and gives him back his pinky ring. He says, look, I took care of a problem for you. He says, we should work together. We can take down the Falcone family. Right. And Moroni's like, who are you? You're nobody.
Yeah.
All this other stuff. Well, then Penguin ends up pinning the murder on Moroni, successfully getting the whole Falcone family to think Moroni was the one that had Alberto killed.
Yes.
And then in episode 2, he goes back to prison and he goes, had to pin it on somebody and you were the best candidate. And he's like, you seem to be enjoying the fact that you get all the credit for it. So why not just own it? And he's like, okay, I'll own it. But now we're going to work together and you're going to like give me insider information and we're going to take the Falcone family down. And it was like perfect. Oh. It worked out for him.
Yeah.
So then they had this botched.
He's like this double agent. And that's the tension that keeps you on the edge of your feet. It's like, how much more? It's kind of like in Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When they're about to get caught, know something bad is going to happen. Either the drug dealers are going to kill him or this and that. And they
always find a way out.
They always find a way out.
Well, here's what I'll say. He's got the biggest plot armor in the world. They're not going to kill him off. He's not going to die. He's not going to get shot. He's not going to get caught.
He just got tortured.
Well, sort of. Not really. But I mean, he's going to live because this is going to be a character that's going to be around. He ends up becoming the Penguin, right? Yeah. So, so say as much as worried as you are about him getting caught or found out, he'll be fine.
Which is great because in episode 2, somebody actually calls him the Penguin. Hey, Penguin.
Penguin. Yeah. Get in the truck. And he's like, what? Get in the truck. So that was the thing. They had this like drug shipment that the Penguin had told Moroni's family how to intercept. I got it all set up. I'm in the trail car. You just pull these guys over and shoot everybody in those cars and get all the shipment. And I'll run away. And then they make him go in the truck. And then that whole scene where he's trying to like live through everybody shooting at him. It was like crazy.
Yeah.
But then then this shipment gets botched and the whole Falcone family thinks, oh, it's an inside job. There's somebody inside.
They know it's an inside job.
They know it's in, and then Oz is like, well, I know it's an inside job because I'm the one that set it up. And he's like, oh, I gotta pin this on somebody. And he tries to pin it on the other guy, Johnny Vitti. He's like, oh, I'm gonna frame him. I got pictures of him effing Falcone's ex-wife or widow. I got those pictures. I got everything. And they go to the funeral, and he's gonna have the kid, Victor, stuffs the jewels that Alberto was looking for in Johnny Vitti's car, and then he's gonna give the pictures to the new like uncle that is now in charge of the family.
Yeah.
But Sophia, Alberto's sister, who's a nut job, and
she came from Arkham.
She's a great actress too. She's done a great job.
She is the wild card in this show.
But she's being, kind of pushed aside by the rest of the family. Nobody wants her to be involved. And she's like, no, it's not going to happen. And Oz has been trying to woo her a little bit, saying, hey, I could help you. I could,
She's been putting him off like,
yeah,
I don't know who you think you are.
Right.
But I know you're trying to manipulate me. I don't want anything. Right. He goes, no, I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm just trying to be on your team. Right. I think we could do big things together with this. Alberto had this new drug coming in, this big shipment that was going to revolutionize the drug business. No longer drops will be the big hit. It'll be this new drug that he's been working on, which is phenomenal. That's a great plot line.
Oh,
because that can carry over to the Batman too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Brilliant.
It's great. And so, he's like, I got to pin it on this guy. Well, he can't get the pictures to the uncle. The kid tries to put the jewels in the car, gets caught, and he's like, oh, what the? And then we find out that Sophia had paid off a cop to kidnap one of the Maroni guys who lived from the heist.
Yeah, that knew that the Penguin went
and he's like, oh, they're gonna drop Penguin's name. So Penguin's like, I gotta go get him. And he goes down and he ends up stabbing the guy, and they're frisking everybody, and he's got the knife, and he ends up dropping it in the bodyguard of Sophia, and they end up shooting him. He's scot-free, and I'm like, he's done it again.
It's incredible.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great show.
It's so well done.
Yeah, it's really well done.
This show, I can't wait to watch the next one.
Same. If you ask me about Agatha and this, the Penguin blows it away.
We were in the session for this at Comic-Con, and Colin Farrell was on it via Zoom, but everybody else from the cast was there, and they were talking about the show and how excited they were for it, and how much they were looking forward to everybody seeing it. And the director,
not Todd Phillips,
Matt Reeves was there, just talking about how great Colin Farrell was, and how he plays his character so well, and all the other
clips were fire. I mean,
they were great.
Clips that we saw were fire.
But this show is awesome.
Yeah, I think it's going to just keep turning up the heat. I really do.
What Matt Reeves is doing with this universe,
Elseworld, yeah,
this Elseworld version of Batman and these other characters. I mean, this is the perfect example of how you spend good quality time developing villains and developing characters.
Yeah.
This will pay off
yeah.
in the future Batman movies. Because when we see Oz and we see the Penguin character, we'll have all of this history.
Yeah.
We'll know everything about him.
Yep.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, Matt Reeves is killing it, dude. I mean, this is so, I mean, we really liked the Batman movie, thought it was really well done. What he's doing with his universe and how he's building this universe is brilliant.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I think it's awesome.
One of the best shows on TV right now.
Oh, easily.
And the numbers tell it.
Oh, is it doing well?
Oh, it's doing very well.
Yeah.
It's crushing it. I mean, the Hollywood shills are throwing out all these Agatha numbers. Oh, it did big numbers, blah, 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 blah. So did The Acolyte when it first came out. But look at that, I don't know. But basically the numbers for this is one of the top shows.
Oh yeah. It's so well done.
Yeah, it's great. All right, Professor, great stuff. Let's ring the bell. School is over.
All right, well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week with more Super Talk. Get in touch with us on social media. Hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com, or at SuperTalkPod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
See ya.
Corner on the top of the man.